I read a book several years ago that I highly recommend to you. It's a very provocative book, fascinating book, titled, You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty. Has anyone heard of this book before? Written by a medical doctor named Theodore Batman-Geldy, fascinating Iranian doctor, and he basically shows in study after study after study after study after study that people, particularly in the West, where we drink lots of sodas and lots of juices and lots of drinks, that literally 50 to 75% of people that are just walking around, maybe people in this very room, 50 to 75% of you are chronically dehydrated. Chronically dehydrated. And his basic principle is, and he is really quite fascinating, he was put in charge of numerous Polish prisons and Ukrainian prisons, and people were suffering from ulcers at like 95%. Like 95% of the prisoners had ulcers in these Polish and Ukrainian prisons that he took over. And when he went in, he changed one thing. He rewarded the prisoners for drinking at least a gallon of water a day. A gallon of water a day. They would drink that, and the ulcers in a one-year period went from like 90% of them had ulcers, 5%. One thing changed, and they just became more hydrated. It diluted the stomach acids. It made the body function better. Chronic dehydration, says Fyodor Batman-Geldy and others, is a major cause of sickness. And all of us could just start drinking a little more water. My brother is a good example of this. My brother, there's really two food groups for my brother. He's taller than me, he's bigger than me, he's more handsome than me, he's funnier than me, but he is younger than me. And he believes in basically the two essential food groups, cereal and Coca-Cola. And I keep telling him, Rob, drink some water. And he says, God bless him, oh, I can't drink water. I was like, your body is made of water. I just went to the University of Oregon. I'm going to wrap this up in about 2 minutes here. I just went to the University of Oregon the other day, and I got a body composition test, which is where they basically do this composition test, and they tell you, this is how much of you weighs this is how much of you weighs this, and this is how much of you weighs this. I weigh 150 pounds, okay, so I'm a little guy. 150 pounds, guess how much of me in body weight is water? 101 pounds. 101 pounds of me is water, 38 pounds of me is proteins and minerals, and the remainder is fat. So I'm basically, you're looking at a snowman in front of you right now. I'm made of water. And you're made of water too. And so the very best thing that you can drink is water. All right, I'm going to wrap up with this right here. Avoid, what's that word right there? Smoking, I don't have to tell you that. You know that. Avoid drinking alcohol, and what's that one? That's a tough one. Yeah, some of you are like, that's the end of life, right? The end of life, you know. Oh, we went to these great meetings. It was really enjoyable. It was great until right at the end of the first meeting, he said, and no more joy. No more happiness for any of you. I want to tell you something. As somebody who used to be a major caffeine drinker, I mean crazy heavy caffeine drinker, I can testify there is life after caffeine, and it's plenty good. Limit or eliminate between meal snacking. It's better just to eat 2 or 3 or 4 meals rather than snacking, because your digestive system's like, oh, we're not done yet. We're just trying to, and then you get indigestion and all kinds of problems. One of the interesting things, I'll tell you something very interesting. One of the factors that they identified with Adventists that was sort of very different from the rest of the population that they did was they found that Adventists ate and snacked at their meals. They would eat at their meals like, oh, I don't remember what the number was, but it was like 7 times more nuts than the general American populace. Now, these are not, you're like, oh, I love nuts. Honey roasted peanuts are so good. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Oh, I love peanut-flavored M&Ms are my favorite. You know, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about regular nuts, almonds, pecans, walnuts, etc. Snacking on those things, very, very, very good for you. Avoid excess refined, what's that word? There he is again. No more happiness for you. No, I'm just kidding. There is great life after refined sugar. Nothing wrong with eating honey or maple syrup or any of those whole food sugars, but it's the refined sugar that really bites you in the butt and is actually a major precursor for diabetes because it causes the pancreas to go crazy. The pancreas doesn't know what to do, and type 2 diabetes is epidemic in the United States right now. The fascinating thing about type 2 diabetes is it is 100% curable. 100% curable. Now, type 1 diabetes is a different animal because the pancreas isn't working properly. But type 2 diabetes, curable. Completely curable by diet and lifestyle. One of the major factors is just decreasing sugar intake. And the final one here is have an attitude of gratitude toward what? Toward God. And so we could go on and talk about a few more things, but the point is basically this. How can you postpone your funeral? You can have a better life, not just in terms of the quantity of years, but in terms of the quality of those years by incorporating a few small, modest health changes. Remember, that's what he said. Many ways, these people are just typical Americans. And if you want to learn more about this, I could not think of a better place than to learn about how to live a happy, healthy life like these weird Seventh-day Adventists than in a Seventh-day Adventist church. And Pastor Lutz can tell you all about it. How old are you, Pastor, now? Like 82, 83? Not quite. No, I'm serious. How old are you? 58 years young. And he'll destroy any of you in tennis. I promise you that. I mean, the guy who's 58, he looks like a superhero. So this is the place to be. We could spend more time talking about how to live a healthy life, but we've given you just a little glimpse tonight on how to postpone your funeral. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to have a 30-minute presentation. Do you hear that, Doctor? Pastor Lutz, you hear that? 30 minutes. He doesn't believe me for a moment. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll come back for 30 minutes.